Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us across the fence. I'm Fran Stoddard. Our focus today is on something that's hard to find for many people right now, a good night's sleep. Sleep is critical to our overall health, both mental and physical. Across the Fence spoke with an expert from UVM's Larner College of Medicine about sleep and the pandemic.
There's a lot of different reasons for why people are feeling like their sleep is disrupted right now. I think everybody to some extent has kind of change in their schedule or their daily life as a result of this. And, whether that's you're no longer going to work anymore, or you're no longer going to school anymore, or you're not visiting with the same friends that you might have been seeing, or you're not having visitors in your home anymore. All of those things change your daily activities. And then, as a result, people might be more likely to kind of get bored during the day. They might lose interest in activities they were doing faster. And they might resort to things like napping or doing things that are a little less active. And then as a result, that can disrupt your sleep over the course of the night if you're sleeping too much during the day or not expending enough energy during the day. People are also just experiencing a lot of stress as a result of this pandemic, whether it's financial stress, stress about family members and their health or friends' health, other social stressors, things like that. And having a lot of those stress hormones running through our system, that can really disrupt our sleep at night. Or we also might be prone to having, racing thoughts as we're trying to fall asleep, and then that can make it really hard to achieve sleep onset. There's people who are also both, either physically isolated or who could potentially be in quarantine right now. And if you're quarantined in your home, then you probably are quarantined in your bedroom, so you can be separate from other people in your house. That can cause a lot of different issues with sleep related to, how we associate sleep onset and sleep health with our bedroom. So if you're doing a lot of other activities like reading in bed or eating in bed, watching television in your bed, studying in bed, all of those things, those can make your bed a place that's more related to those activities or more related to stress or something like that, as opposed to sleep. People are kind of changing their surrounding environment, and it's making it so their association with their bed and sleep is getting kind of looser. And that makes it harder to fall asleep at night too.
I'm also hearing you say maybe there's this sort of a formula.
Yeah.
Stress levels go up, and the inverse is our quality of sleep goes down.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a big association with higher stress levels and either lower quantity of sleep, so a smaller amount of time that you actually spend asleep, or poorer quality sleep. So not going through the stages of sleep as you're supposed to be, or, not spending enough time in certain aspects of sleep. And so both of those things can make you wake up feeling kind of groggy. You feel more fatigued over time. You might feel more irritable, all of that kind of stuff. The other things that are kind of like disrupting our sleep too, are you just have access to screens. So, we're all spending a lot more time on screens, doing meetings, doing, FaceTiming with family, all of that kind of stuff to try and remain socially connected, which is really important actually. And I highly recommend people do that as much as they can. But being mindful of when you need to take a break from it, or kind of cutting off access to screens in like the 2 to 3 hours before you're meaning to go to bed. Because what the blue light from screens does is it typically will start to reduce our melatonin levels. And melatonin is a hormone that kind of lets our body know what time it is and when we need to go to sleep or when we should start getting ready for sleep. So if we don't have enough of that in our system, then our body naturally doesn't feel like it needs to sleep quite yet. So, as much as the screens are excellent that we're able to maintain social connections, we need to be mindful of that and how much of that we're really getting.
Can you give us a sense of when does the lack of sleep move from being the inconvenience, geez, I'm really tired, to this is a health issue for someone?
Yeah.
Where's that line, or can you help us understand a little more about that?
Yeah, the line there is pretty blurry. It's going to be different for different people. So just, kind of on a basic level, if you're an adult, the recommendation for the amount of sleep you should be getting is somewhere between 7 to 9 hours. So that number that you hear a lot of time in the media, get 8 hours of sleep, you need 8 hours. There's reason for that. There's a lot of research to support that. The caveat is there are people who are on either end of that spectrum, or there's some people who really thrive with 6 hours, or some people who know they need 10 hours. So it is, a bell curve. However, if you are not getting the amount of sleep that you need, even having one night of sleep deprivation, so whether that's total sleep deprivation, like pulling an all-nighter, or even just losing a couple of hours of sleep over that night, we start to see that that's associated with a pretty significant cognitive decline. So you're just not thinking as clearly the next day. You might not be able to problem solve as well or use good judgment as well. We also see that your motor functioning can decline. So you might not have as quick of a response time. We think of that as being really important when people are driving and have to respond quickly to red lights or traffic, that kind of stuff. We also see that if you have a night of total sleep deprivation, that's actually associated with brain loss, even just that single night of total sleep deprivation. And then it's associated with a lot of other things like changes in mood and irritability and, just not being a fun person to be around, frankly. Over time, what that can accumulate to is a much higher risk for things like obesity, a much higher risk for diabetes. In some studies, they've shown that it quadruples your stroke risk in subsequent nights of total sleep deprivation, or just accumulating what we call sleep debt. So sleep debt is what we get if we are, not filling our sleep bank, basically. So if we are aiming to get 8 hours of sleep each night, and then, we get 6 hours of sleep one night, we get 7 hours of sleep another night. Each of those hours that we're losing, we're accumulating sleep debt. And the higher accumulation you have of that, the more that's associated with some pretty significant negative health outcomes. And when it really becomes a problem is when it's really affecting your day. So you have to think, subjectively, how am I functioning right now? Am I able to do my general activities of daily living, like getting out of bed, showering, making my breakfast, all of those kinds of things? Is my mood like so out of control or so down that I just can't even, do my activities I usually love? All of those things would point to that's a significant health problem at this point.
So as you're talking, I'm knowing this already. I'm making some mistakes at work that I don't normally make.
Yeah.
And I know this is difficult. Is there anything I can do or others who are in my situation who over the last several weeks have accumulated some significant sleep debt or deprivation? Any words of advice for me or others?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different things that you can do to kind of get your sleep back on track. And, since we're home, we can focus on a lot of these different things. We can focus on our sleep environment, for instance. So what does your bedroom look like? You should have a bedroom that is dark, that is cool, that is as noise-free as possible. Some people really like white noise machines, and that's totally fine. But you want to keep a quiet room if you can. We can start thinking about our daily schedules and kind of what we're doing in those couple of hours before we go to bed. So, we want to be doing relaxing activities. We want to be, avoiding really heavy meals. We don't want to be drinking too much alcohol or caffeine, even nicotine too. So cigarettes or tobacco, all of those things can affect your sleep onset. So we want to try to avoid those in the hours before bed. There's other things to think about in terms of if you want to avoid that sleep debt. A lot of people have this misconception that the thing that they should do is just kind of pay it back the next night or something like that, or pay it
Or on
back
the weekend?
Yeah. This idea of like, okay, I didn't sleep so well during the week, so I'm just going to sleep in a ton on the weekend and kind of cover my sleep loss there. It doesn't typically work that way very well. You might be able to get away with like a night of that or something like that if you had a particularly bad night of sleep. But if you're doing that consistently over time, then what we tend to see is that your circadian rhythm or your sleep schedule that your body's kind of following throughout the day or the week, it gets pretty out of whack. So for instance, if you're trying to sleep for 8 hours and you slept for 6 hours one night, and then you decided I'm going to sleep 10 hours the next night to make up for it, you're probably going to wake up like 2 hours later than what you would typically. And then that's going to start your rhythm for the day 2 hours later. And so then that night you might feel sleepy 2 hours later than what you usually would. And you've just kind of set yourself up for this kind of pushback of your schedule over time instead. So what I recommend for people to do is just kind of power through that day. If you didn't sleep so well the night before, like say you got a 6 hour night of sleep, try to power through that day as best as you can. Keep yourself busy. You could take a little nap, like a 20 to 30-minute power nap or something like that is totally fine, as long as you don't put it too close to your bedtime. And then that night, go to bed when you feel tired. Try to keep it close to your typical bedtime, and then get back into a regular routine.
As I close this up, I wonder if I can't draw on your home experience. You told me you have two young children under the age of 5. So you have those challenges even without the pandemic. What does the expert do at home?
So right now we're actually in the middle of sleep training one of our kids, and then other kid is potty training. So it's a whirlwind in our home right now. But I think we really focus on the things that we can control in our home. So this is a really uncertain time, and there's a lot of things that are totally out of our control, and we get new information pretty consistently every day from the news and from the media. And while a lot of that is looking hopeful right now, we're still indoors and we're still kind of stuck in our houses for the foreseeable future. So I really encourage that people find control of their homes and take control of their lives. And I think that sleep is one of those things that you can really kind of like pinpoint some little things that you can do that can be really helpful for your sleep. And, they don't take a lot of effort necessarily. They don't take a huge amount of time or money. They're little things that you can do to just potentially have a really big adjustment to your sleep. And subsequently could help you for, weeks and months and even years to come.
Our thanks to Dr. Pamela Swift. For viewers who want more information, Dr. Swift suggests the National Sleep Foundation website, which can be found at sleepfoundation.org. And once again, thank you for joining us across the fence. I'm Fran Stoddard. Stay well.